A state senator has created a proposal that would prevent landlords from the ability to get a loan in certain situations. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the state of New York. Now, as I've mentioned many times before, New York is one of the first places to come up with new tenant protections and anti-landlord legislation. And this article right now that I'm going to be going over is a brand new one that I haven't heard of before, where basically there's a state senator up there, and he's trying to make it impossible for landlords in certain situations to get state-backed loans, okay, or loans within the state of New York. Now, it doesn't sound like it's going to pass or anything, but at the same time, this kind of crazy thing where you're trying to prevent people from the ability to get a loan, when it's not a good idea, in my opinion. This is the kind of thing that could spread throughout the country. This is what we could be seeing in other parts of the country in the future. Now, before I get into the article, though, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. Do you think it's a good idea for the state to get involved in the financial processes that landlords deal with? I don't, okay? Not only do I think that this bill would be 100% ineffective, but I just don't like the fact that these lawmakers, they think that they can go beyond what their job is and then start dictating the way that we do business, okay? So this article comes from therealdeal.com, and it says, Steve Croman-inspired bill would block bad landlords from state bank loans. State Senator Brad Hoylman announced a measure at rally outside Croman's UES mansion Thursday. And let's see what this article says, and I'll let you know exactly what I think and why I think this is a problem. The holiday spirit was audible outside Steve Croman's Upper East Side mansion Thursday night, but the carolers weren't singing the jingle bells. As members of the Stop Croman Coalition, a tenant group formed in 2007 to hold the notorious landlord accountable, set their feelings about him to music, a colorful rewrite of "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" stood out. And I'm not going to read what the rewrite was because that's not the part of the article that I'm interested in. The song served as an introduction for State Senator Brad Hoylman, who came bearing a legislative gift, a bill that would bar landlords convicted of fraud or violating housing laws from receiving financing from state-chartered banks. So, yeah, this state senator, he threw this out there, basically if you're convicted of fraud or violating housing laws. Now, okay, I can understand the fraud thing, right? Now, you might not be basically someone who a bank would want to lend to. Now, when you start talking about, well, if you've been convicted of state housing laws, well, what state housing laws are we talking about here? That's the main question. Are these laws arbitrary and, are they ridiculous laws? That's what, it's easy to get convicted of a state housing law if you have ridiculous small minuscule laws to cover everything. Well, you didn't paint your peeling paint on your building. Well, guess what? You get the citation, so therefore now you have a conviction for a state housing law, and now you can't get a state bank loan. Okay, you see where I'm going here? Basically, this is a ridiculous law. It shouldn't be put into place, and this guy here, he's going too far. The goal of the proposed legislation, Hoylman said, is to stop bad actors like Croman from buying additional buildings and subjecting more tenants to harassment. They will not be handed more money to grow their evil empires and take advantage of even more New Yorkers, he said. Croman has for years been criticized for his alleged predatory treatment of tenants. Well, I'm not going to, dispute any of that. I have no clue what this guy has been doing or what he hasn't been doing. But what I will say is this. First of all, you only have power over New York State, okay? So the fact that the person isn't able to get a loan out of New York State, that doesn't mean anything, okay? I have mortgages out of other states. I can get loans from any other state. There's nationwide lenders who are lending money, and you can only block what's happening out of New York State. So if this guy isn't able to get a loan from New York State, guess what? He could probably just walk on over somewhere else and get a loan, okay? If he can't personally get a loan, he might be able to form an LLC, and then his LLC would be able to get a loan. You see what I'm saying? Basically, you're not going to block this guy from being able to do business with this ridiculous legislation. This might be a piece of feel-good legislation for, a few tenant right activists, right, who have no clue how the business is done and how things actually work. But this will not actually accomplish the goal of doing anything other than punishing the good landlords who maybe get caught up and get a small, low-level conviction for a crime. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, we end up in a bad situation. And once again, let's say this guy is the boogeyman, the bad guy that you say he is. Well, he's the 0.01% of landlords, and the other 99.99% of landlords are doing their job and they're doing it right. They're taking care of their properties, they're treating their tenants with respect, and guess what? Now they fall under this same system. So they might have a low-level problem with the law, and guess what? Now they can't get a loan. And they really are put into financial distress because of it. And this is always what happens whenever we have this new ridiculous legislation coming into place from people who think, oh, we're helping the tenants, we're helping the tenants. Well, guess what? You're not helping the tenants with all this crap. You're putting a huge burden on the landlords. And landlords are saying, hey, I'm sick of it. I'm getting out of the business. I'm going to sell to this huge global conglomerate over here, run by some private company. And, you're from now on, your landlord isn't some person that you can demonize. It'll be, Blackstone, some huge group that you don't, there is no telling who the real owner is. Okay. So, that's the cost though. That's the cost of putting this kind of legislation on landlords. The small landlords always end up taking the brunt of the pain from all of this crap that you put into place. Now, like I said, I don't know what this guy did or didn't do, and that's irrelevant, okay? I just know for a fact that he's not going to be the only one who suffers under this. He spent 8 months in jail after pleading guilty to grand larceny and tax fraud in 2017 and agreed to pay $8 million to settle claims he harassed tenants out of rent-regulated apartments. As part of the settlement, temporary control of his more than 100 properties was turned over to Michael Besson's New York City management until 2023. But in years following his release, critics say Croman has reprised many of his old tactics. The Real Deal reported in 2019 that the infamous landlord has jumped back into the city's real estate market, acquiring new buildings and popping in to give orders to supers at his existing properties, despite the 5-year ban that purportedly prevents him from managing his portfolio. Well, that might be the case. I don't know. But remember, you're trying to get this one guy by passing legislation that affects everyone. That's a dumb idea. Why not just go straight after him? Go up and say, hey, you're breaking the rules of your settlement. And, based on, the settlement that you said, if you violate the terms, you could, you have your probation revoked and then go back to jail. That'd be a pretty simple thing to do. But instead, you're punishing all landlords. I always hate the way that government bureaucrats work, okay? Instead of going straight after the single person who is committing the crime, they want to punish everyone. And I've always hated that, but it's a very, very common tactic. I work for the government, so I know, if somebody breaks a rule, instead of going and, saying to that one guy, hey, you broke this rule, they come to everybody and they tell everybody, hey, no one here can break the rules anymore, and we're going to take away everyone's privileges from now on. Like, you think that does anything? You're punishing everyone for the mistakes of one person is stupid, okay? Tenants told TRD they still experienced abuse under New York City management, which had hired Croman's former employees. Croman also faced new lawsuits for allegedly backing out of deals and illegally deregulating units. The legislation would bar Croman from receiving financing from major multifamily lender New York Community Bank, which has continued to lend to the landlord despite being one of the banks he was convicted of defrauding. And like I've said, that just because he is unable to get financing from this one bank doesn't mean he won't be able to get loans anymore. That's, idiotic if you believe that, okay? So yeah, there's lenders all over the country, all over the world even, that this guy could still be able to go to, get financing, make purchases, and how can you even say, unless he is the principal under an LLC, how do you even know, that he is the outright owner or not? It doesn't make sense, okay? So yeah, this guy, he might be a bad dude. I'm not saying that he's a good landlord. He might be that 0.01%, right? But in the end of the day, right, passing legislation like this is going to hurt landlords, and that's a simple fact.